Welcome to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary on YouTube. This is your host, ScottyB. You're going to notice today, folks, that I don't really have much of an intro for a guest, and I do not have my co-host with me. This will be the first episode really in the 2 years that we've done the show where I am actually going to just do a solo episode with me talking to you in front of the camera for a few minutes, and this will also be simultaneously uploaded to podcasts at the end of the week. Today's Friday, of course, so we try to come out with an episode every Friday for the season until we get to C2E2. So as I ramble on, today's topic is production and overproduction. So let's get right into everything. Hopefully there won't be too many jump cuts as I go through. As it's the first time where you've only been listening to me on the show, I'll probably just overblow it, but that's all right. I really wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the production quality of things that you put online, of what goes into your feed, of what goes into your YouTube video, and what goes into your cosplay, because what I really want to have you think about is overproduction. And I think that there's a lot of that going on today because there's a feeling of having to keep up with the cosplay Joneses, which I've talked about before on the show, and just how everything is so well done on Twitch and YouTube and in many other spaces that we feel like we're competing with the people who have very large production budgets to create the shows that we love as part of the MCU or the DC universe. And well beyond that, I will probably, I'll just spoil it for you now. Next week, I'm going to be talking about Dune that's coming out on HBO Max. I'm very excited about that. So that will date this episode very much, but I just want to get that in there because it is my absolute favorite. It's just my favorite fandom, period. No matter what our level is and what our budget may be for that. And let me tell you that some of these shows on YouTube are getting to have as high of a production cost as things that you would watch on television. I mean, it goes, there's a huge scale, and unfortunately a lot of us fall into a comparison trap when we are creating content for people to consume on our platforms versus what everybody else is doing, and we just fall into that trap and we're like, oh, it's not good enough. I'm a small channel and I have a fixed camera. Actually, I'm just using the pro webcam right now, the 1080p webcam, which really wasn't that expensive, but I use it for a few different reasons. I do have another camera here that I could be using right now that's a little nicer, but it tends to create a little bit of confusion just in general with all the sound equipment and stuff. I need to like sit down and like figure that out. So there's always a bunch of things going on for your channel versus what's happening out in the interwebs and what you're seeing. And the thing that you want to make sure of when you are producing a video is that it just has some basic elements to it. Basic elements to it, which I will refer to as the minimum viable product. And I have referred to that on the show before. If you watch any of the many hundreds of episodes that I've come out with on the podcast, you may have heard me talk about the minimum viable product. And really what that is it's the minimum amount of energy and effort and production that you put into something in order to bring it to market. So what is your basics? What are your basics? What are you explaining to someone? What are you doing for your audience? You don't have to get super flashy with everything that you produce. You don't have to be the Mr. Personality of the internet in order to get that job done and to help someone get a little bit further with what they want to do. On the show here, our big goal is to give the cosplay community something, not only just a safe space to share their own stories, but the information that they can use to help that community build in a space where it's becoming very, very difficult to build content, to grow an audience. It's just getting harder and harder. It's becoming something that you really do need a production crew and a marketing team behind you in order to get yourself out there and stay relevant in this space. But the going back to the minimum viable product, and you're going to see me looking at my show notes as I'm going, because this is it's just a new thing for me. I'm used to asking people questions. So when you are looking at what needs to be done to convey your message, and what you should do versus what you think you should do to do that. You don't need a full studio set. It's my choice to even have a background. I could just have a white background. You don't want a grainy video necessarily. You don't want grainy sound because people are just going to like turn that off. Doesn't matter how charismatic you are on camera, if it's not at least at a minimum level of standard, people are going to turn that off. And you do have to have a certain level of energy when you're just doing things by yourself, like I do now. Like I'm just trying to push a little bit more energy into the space, because generally when I over push my energy, that's when I know that it's probably going to come off as being about where it needs to be. If I don't give you enough, and if I'm just dragging through my sentences and you can tell that the energy level is dropping, then that is really like, that's going to lose people's attention. They're not going to want to listen to what you have to tell them if you're not also excited about what you're trying to convey. Figure out what's best for you. Don't worry about the level of production value that has to go into a single video with all the lower thirds and little flashy things and the cutscenes and the memes and all the stuff that people put into their Twitch channels and put into their YouTube channels. And it's just crazy how much they do. Honestly, I am as likely to click off of that content as I am to click off of someone just talking and giving me the information that I want in front of a camera. Like I'm going to be honest with you, at least as my opinion, as far as it goes, there are some very vanilla backgrounds out there that it doesn't make any difference, because the person who is giving me the information is giving me the information that I want. And that's why I came to YouTube. I came to YouTube for the information, and that is really where a lot of us start. That is where a lot of us need to consider starting, especially in cosplay, that being able to help somebody with how-to information, being able to talk to them about some of these behind-the-scene things is very valuable. And don't worry about the outcome. So that's really one of the big things, especially for me building this channel, is when I come up with concepts like this and I look for topics to cover in the course of a season where I'm not interviewing somebody and I'm not talking to Astravoid about some of the things that are hot button topics inside of cosplay. You know, you don't want to overthink the topics. You don't want to spend too much time talking. You know, make sure that you can edit down some of your ramblings, like I will be doing with this episode. But there also has to be a thought process behind not getting paralyzed in being perfect, not getting paralyzed in the outcome. Oh no, nobody's going to watch this episode. And we'll talk about that in future weeks about that, oh my God, I'm not getting any views. Well, it isn't always the production value that matters. It can be a lot of different things. The topic, the way that it relates to your YouTube channel, and what that algorithm is picking up on versus all of the content that you've already produced. So is this program movie quality yet? No, not really. It's not movie quality. And I don't know if it really has to be ever. There are other things that I want to work on in this space for this platform that will be a little higher quality, fun projects that I hope to begin working on and raising some funds for soon. So if you want to create, there are some planning and some production questions that you should ask yourself, things that need to be answered, things that need to be written down and structured. But to a certain point, can you release content? And can you instead say, this worked, this didn't? Yes, I think you can. And I think that's a really good positive way to look at it, is when you do these sorts of things and you check your channel a couple days later, usually after about 48 hours, you want to go back and see how it's doing. Look at the video, see what you liked, see what you didn't like, and see what you want to do better next time. Was I not engaged enough with the camera? Were my cuts just a little bit off? Was the background music just not quite what I wanted it to be? Sometimes these things matter, sometimes they don't. So that's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for being here. If you liked the video, click the like button. It's not a big deal to me, and I don't know if it really matters to the algorithm anymore. If you didn't like the video, click the unlike button. That's fine too. Leave me a comment if you have a question or you have something that you'd like to share with me about the show. And of course, you can go and visit us at our many spaces online, myself, Astravoid Cosplay. It's all in the description below. Thanks so much for being here this week, and I will see you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.